Hello. Before we present our thoughts on whether or not Facebook became too intrusive and if they fell under antitrust law considerations, we'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Max via Franzmann. This is my partner Owen Baxter. We're from Littleton High School competing in the business ethics event.
First, for the identification of ethical principles and dilemmas involved. This case study ultimately deals with Facebook monopolizing the technology and social media industry in order to maximize their user count and revenue. Facebook can track activity on any of its own platforms, such as likes and profiles visited and interacted with. One user, who is also a writer for the New York Times, said, "The social network had even kept a permanent record of the roughly 100 people I had deleted from my friends list over the last 14 years, including my exes." They can also track activity with cookies and something called pixel tracking. Their technologies is used in 32% of the top 500 Android apps and reaches 1 billion people per month. Facebook is also accused of monopolization of social media companies. New York's top prosecutor, Letitia James, claims Facebook engaged in a buy or bury strategy when acquiring social media platforms, Instagram and WhatsApp. That was from an article by Reuters. Again, it engaged in illegal data handling practices, violated the law by failing to protect data from third parties, serving ads through the use of phone numbers provided for security. Facebook has knowingly collected data from its users that has been sourced from the platform itself, its own companies, and tracking software that can follow users almost anywhere on the internet. Facebook allows data to be used by third-party companies in order to further their own interests. And the lack of competition due to Facebook's acquisitions from the majority of people forces the majority of people to use Facebook projects if they want to engage in social media, as more than 2.5 billion people use one of Facebook's apps each day. Users are not aware of the multitude of data which is collected, and some points can be extremely sensitive, possibly leading to dangerous consequences for millions of people if it ends up in the wrong hands. A reference to this problem would be the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Facebook is creating risk to maximize earnings and ignoring the user's desire for privacy. Next, for why dilemmas occurred. Facebook sells ad space and data so companies can efficiently target the audience to generate revenue. In order to stay viable, Facebook must prioritize companies over the privacy of their citizens. Their users, it seems. Facebook, along with every other business, wants to maximize their profit. Many other companies, including news organizations like the New York Times, mine information about users for marketing purposes. If Facebook is being singled out for such practices, it is because it is a market leader and its stockpiling of personal data is at the core of its $40.6 billion annual business. That was from an article from the New York Times. Facebook has become too focused on revenue, and consumer privacy is not as high as a priority as it should be. They feel that profit from illegal practices, such as data tracking and illegal data handling, would outweigh penalties or consequences imposed by federal authorities.
To resolve any issues that Facebook has created for themselves, my partner and I have come with a few resolutions. First and foremost, they should apologize to the public as well as Congress. Facebook must admit and explain in detail how they collected the personal data of millions of Facebook users without their consent to be used by British consulting firm Cambridge Analytica. This was predominantly to be used for political advertising. Next, they should put forward a credible governance plan to be displayed to the public as well as Congress. They should lay out a plan that will explain exactly how our users' personal data will be ethically used, if used at all. Any revisions can be made after the public and Congress have emphasized any issues they feel need to be addressed. To demonstrate integrity, Facebook should use this unfortunate incident as an opportunity to illustrate how they will improve on their overall operations, as well as become much more honest with their privacy management. And finally, considering Facebook must be held accountable for the potential privacy invasion of users who opt to use its site, they must decide which data they hold on to, because a security breach that would leak personal information would be entirely Facebook's fault. For prevention, Facebook could have completely avoided the situation had it explained in their user agreement precisely which personal data is being collected and how it will be used by Facebook. They should have also explained what data is being used by which other platforms. Also could have increased a bug bounty program for members that want to report any issues with the site. They should be rewarded if they find instances of the app developers misusing their data. Facebook could have turned off an application's access to users' data if the user hadn't been on the application within a certain period of time. As well as Congress could have created laws to prevent certain personal information being used by social media platforms. That is a much more difficult preventer for Facebook, but it probably would have completely avoided the situation most effectively.